iPredict works by gathering the knowledge of its 5,000 plus traders. If a stock has a price of 57 cents, that means the market thinks that event has a 57% chance of happening. If you agree, you buy. If you disagree, you short. And if you're right, you make money. Kia ora. Good evening, New Zealand. This is day 17 until the country goes to the polls. Welcome to iPredict Election 2011, the most accurate source of political and economic information in New Zealand broadcasting. Our three predictions tonight. Prediction 1. With iPredict saying Hone Harawira is as safe in the Te Tokoro electorate as John Key is in Helensville, the focus turns on Mana possibly winning a second seat in Waiariki. The Maori Party have a 58% probability of winning. Mana now have a 37% probability of winning. What is the best buy or short? Prediction 2. The iPredict market is predicting a Mana Party vote at 2%, with beneficiaries making up 12% of the national electorate. Is this a buy or a short? Will Mana become the new political voice of the poor after Labour's latest abysmal poll results? Prediction 3. Despite Kelvin Davis's controversial endorsement of him for the leadership, iPredict says the chances of Shane Jones being the next leader of the Labour Party are just 5%. Is this the swan song for Shane Jones' political career, or can the self-described greatest orator of the 21st century beat Peter Sharples? To dissect these predictions, let me introduce tonight's panel. He walked away from the Māori Party to form a new party, including Annette Sykes, John Minto and Sue Bradford. He's a man who clearly likes a challenge. Mana Party leader, Hone Harawira. And he is the political columnist for the National Business Review, moral shepherd of the right, Matthew Hooton. Welcome to you both. We'll also wrap the show with a final prediction, but let's kick things off with tonight's first market prediction. In yesterday's political roundup, the very well-respected Bryce Edwards said of the Māori electorates that Waiariki is in play between Flavel and Sykes, and the electorate has been one of the biggest movers on the market this week. Could the Māori Party lose another Māori electorate seat to the Mana Party? Matthew, Māori have proven time and time again that they strategically understand MMP more than any other group in New Zealand society. They swung to New Zealand first when they thought their aspirations were best suited there. They swung to Helen Clark when they thought their aspirations were best suited with her. And they swung to the Māori Party when they saw their aspirations best voiced there. Will this continue with Mana? Could they pick up Waiariki?
Actually, I don't think it's got anything to do with MMP. I think the people who best understand MMP are the people of Epsom and Oharu and Wigram, Jim Anderton's seat. I mean, the Maori electorates, it's a first past the post game. And these electorates have existed for a very long time. And if it hadn't been that Maori, for some reason, that Hone probably is better able to explain than I am, that Maori decided to be the plaything of the Labour Party for so many decades, Maori could have achieved this under first past the post. And in fact, I think it was under first past the post that Tauhenere first was elected a New Zealand first MP. So it's got nothing to do with MMP. It's that there are these seats that are race-based, to use that phrase, and if Maori vote collectively for a political vehicle, they can hold the balance of power.
Your thoughts on Waiariki?
Well, I'm not sure it matters that much. I think that, as you said, Hone is almost 100% certain to win his seat. I think the Mana Party will probably get enough party votes for Annette Sykes to come into Parliament anyway. So what happens in Waiariki isn't that important. It's
fairly important to the Māori Party, though, isn't it? I mean, if they do lose some of their top leadership,
it's important to them. And Taylor of Flavel is a fantastic MP. He's done great work for the Maori Party, and so I guess what he'll want to do is run a line saying, vote for me because Annette's going to be in Parliament anyway.
Should he be worried?
Well,
the market's suggesting he should be. The
market is still saying he's safe. It will be tight, and I think as long as he gets that message out that people can vote if they want for the Mana Party on the party vote, and for Flavel they could get two for the price of one.
Hone, Te Rawa won this electorate in 2008 by almost 7,000 votes, even with the history of Māori voters adapting to MMP. How can Annette really compete here, and how much impact has the RENA had on galvanising support?
The RENA's part of it, but the whole Mana thing is also important. I mean, I won the last time round with 12,000 votes, and then the Māori Party proceeded to lose it at the by-election. They only got 1,000 votes. So the swing is there, the momentum is there. And if I could say this about Waiariki, I've been down there a few times now, and I get the feeling in Waiariki kind of like Tai Tokerau in 2005.
Right.
There was a real feeling down there for change. And it's not for what's Labour's guy's name? It's not for that guy.
Yes, yes. Well, what's his
I'm
name?
not saying that. I'm not
Sure.
saying this because Annette's on my crew, but because they're really pissed off with Tūroroa
Right.
over the Petrobras thing, over the fact that all of the iwi voted against the Marine and Coastal Area Bill, and he voted for it.
Yep.
The fact that when the Prime Minister came out and said there's no connection between the Rena and the Petrobras, and 5 days later Tūroroa came out and said there's no connection between the Rena and the Petrobras.
Right.
Over there, they just started to think that he's now just a puppet for national rather than an independent Wairiki MP.
The Māori Party's response has been to claim only they are an authentic voice for Māori. With Pākehā in the Mana Party, are they right? And will that impact on the Māori vote, or are their policies broad enough to bring in a larger constituency? The Māori Party have certainly run the line, we are the authentic voice for Māori, Mana isn't.
Well, they run that line. I mean, the reality is more Maori vote for the National Party than vote for the Maori Party or are going to vote for the Mana Party. So in terms
In the
of
general election.
well, overall, of Maori people in New Zealand, far more vote for National and obviously for Labour than vote for the Maori Party or Mana. In fact, those two combined don't even come close. So it's not a question of being the genuine voice of Maori, it's being the genuine voice for a small dispossessed group of people that the Mana Party in particular is focused on.
So, but do you think the Māori Party can claim authenticity?
I think that they can claim that they are the voice of traditional iwi-based Maori, that's correct.
Right. Where do you think this line comes from? Their argument is they're the authentic voice. You've allowed Pākehā into the party. You no longer represent Māori.
Oh, they're only standing in the Māori seats. They've got to try and get a leg up somewhere.
Right.
They don't seem to be getting traction in any of their policy issues. So it's about attacking the integrity of mana, which is
Right.
kind of disappointing. But that's as it may be. One other thing, though, I'd just like to pick up on a comment about whether or not it matters who's got the seat. It does matter, and I'll tell you why. Labour's had more party vote in Tai Tokerau in 2005, more party vote in Tai Tokerau in 2008, more party vote in the by-election in 2011. But nobody thinks Calvin's the voice of Tai Tokerau.
Right,
Hey,
right.
you win the seat, you are the voice of that electorate. That's how Māori see it completely. If you don't hold the seat, you know, you might be on the list, but nobody gives you any recognition for it.
Do you think Mana's policies are broad enough to be able to bring in more people than just the Māori constituency?
Oh yes, I mean there's people on the far radical left of New Zealand who are attracted by Sue Bradford and John Minto, who are Mana Party candidates. I mean, Sue Bradford is a distinguished person.
She was on last night's show.
And that was a fantastic show last night. I mean, she passed more legislation as an opposition backbencher than any other opposition backbencher in history. She changed, the most significant was the anti-smacking legislation, where Sue Bradford managed to work with John Key and Helen Clark to get that through.
Yep.
And of course, John Minto worked on a very broad-based movement to oppose apartheid in the 1980s, and he is a national icon for that. So, but having said that, I mean, hardly anyone's going to vote for the Mana Party. This is a 1%, 2%, 3% party.
Right. At a 39% probability of winning, would you buy this stock because Annette will pull off one of the biggest surprises of the election, or would you short it because Flavel will overcome this challenge and see it off? Where's your call on this?
Actually, I don't follow any of that kind of that share market kind of activity. My feeling though is that the swing is with Annette, the momentum is with Annette. I just don't see Tūroroa having the ability to pull it back. He stayed right away from the Petrobras protests.
That's right.
Had nothing to do, wouldn't go up there at all. When the guys got brought to court in Tauranga, he wouldn't come anywhere near the place. He fronted for a little while on the Rena thing, but I don't know whether he's hoping that he's got a really strong conservative base somewhere backing him, but disappointingly, I think for him, is that one of the big names in Rotorua actually went in the paper to say she doesn't trust him, she doesn't think that he can do it even for
Really?
even
So
for
regional
Zili.
voices are coming forward against
Yeah,
him?
so I think that's his difficulty. In terms of Annette, she's just going hard. And the other thing too that she's picked up is the teams that Te Roro used to have. most of Annette's people are Maori Party people,
Right.
have all come across to mana, and they got that same enthusiasm from 2005 for change. They want change, and they want their person to take the seat.
The vibe is going Mana's way. You still say Māori Party are going to take this?
Probably, but I probably think it's worth investing $10 or so in Annette.
Really?
Because at the moment, the way it's priced, you triple your money in potentially 17 days. So
So
small
this
flutter on
could be
Annette
this
as
could be
a-
the
as
first
a-
time
as
you
a
ever
risk.
back Annette Sykes?
Well, I think probably it's slightly underpriced at 30,
Yep.
although there's some risk built in there.
Sure.
Because it's very close.
I love it. Thank you, panel. Let's move on to prediction 2. With the perception that Labour are not in a position to stop National, will the left vote splinter to support who they think can best resist the sale of state assets, and will Mana pick those votes up? Hone, 12% of the voting electorate are beneficiaries. Mana policy is focused exclusively on the poor. Isn't the problem for Mana the fact that that electorate just don't bother voting?
That's a tough one. It was certainly the case in my by-election, but it was interesting to note last night that when they were talking about the impact of the poor on beneficiaries, this woman said, well, I've always voted Labour all my life, but I'm not going to this time because I just don't think they're doing it.
Right.
And they asked her, well, you're going to vote Māori Party? She said, no, I'm going to vote Mana. And, that wasn't an area where we don't even have a candidate. I just think that people don't get any longer Phil Goff as the champion of the poor, or the champion of the beneficiaries, or even the champion of the working class. And they're clearly looking for somebody else. And actually out there, it's not really what you call far left radicals. It's just poor people, I think, Matthew. Poor people, the difficulty is they don't vote, but if they hear the kōrero, I think they get the mana thing.
That's good news, there's only 2% of the population are poor then.
No. It's a lot of them are poor.
Yeah.
The difficulty, of course, is that they don't vote.
Right.
That's the difficulty. So we have to try.
So how do you counter that? Right.
Door knocking. The best thing that I've ever had going for me, because I've never had a lot of money, and Māori Party's never given me a lot of money for my elections, it is people. If you knock on people's doors, it makes a difference.
Right.
So that's what we have to do. It's going to be tough. Our percentages aren't going to be high, but if we work hard, we'll get there.
Matthew, why would Pākehā vote for Mana?
Well, hardly any will. Hardly any Maori will vote for Mana. But I think there's no good reason to vote for Mana. And the reason for that is that Hone and his crew have said that they're not going to sell out. Right? And that sounds kind of cool and tough in an adolescent sort of way, the way, talking about white mofos and so forth and taking the missus to Paris sounds cool. But the thing is, under MMP, it was put in place by the voters to be a consensus-based system. So if you say that you're not going to sell out, what you really mean is you're not going to work with anyone else. You're not going to compromise with anyone else. You're not going to try and trade things off. And that might allow you to sort of maintain your sense that you're some sort of, fourth form, the cool guy in the back of the science class throwing darts at the system. But unless you're prepared to work with other people, you're always going to be totally irrelevant in the political system.
So
and
of course-
unfortunately,
so of course-
that's
so-
Mana's future.
So of course did work with all of those groups, which is
Well,
the
Sue,
point
well,
you made
exactly,
last
but
time.
Sue in a way did sell out.
Yeah.
Sue did compromise on her anti-smacking legislation, first with Helen Clark, and then to make sure that it got passed by Parliament almost unanimously, 113 out of 120 MPs. Sue compromised and sold out to John Key.
Yeah.
But I think the fact that that legislation was passed so overwhelmingly has led to enormous social change, but that's not something this guy will ever achieve.
Hone, do you think that Matt's misreading the anger in the electorate of poverty, because he lives in a comfy, leafy sort of suburb in Epsom, isn't it? Do you think that he's misreading the anger out there, and that they want to know that the people they represent aren't going to sell them out?
I think the poor people like strong advocates. That's number one. Number two, I think Matthew's completely off when he says that we can't work with other people. And my work on the tobacco legislation is a classic example. I had to work with National, with Labour, with the Greens, to try to get all of that inquiry through to a point where we come up with recommendations, which weren't all what I wanted.
So you sold out?
No.
Sounds like you sold out.
No. I guess at the end of the day, every politician, every intelligent individual actually, so you might have missed out on this one here, Matthew, is that they should always be willing to compromise on strategy, never required to compromise on principle. My principle was that we should be aiming to get rid of tobacco, right, out of this country. We now have legislation in place to make that happen. The strategic compromise is that I bit the bullet on the deadline. I would have liked it a lot sooner than 2025, but it's going to happen. So I have an ability to work with others. I've said openly that there's only two parties I won't work with, and that's National and ACT. And unless your Conservative buddies get in, that'll be another one I probably won't be working with. So those are the ones there's no point in working with because they've already got a very clear
I guess your problem is, though, also that Labor won't work with you.
No, that's not true. Phil Goff said he won't. Is he likely to stay? Is he likely to stay?
Here's the thing: the difficulty you have.
What's the short and long run, Phil?
The difficulty you have is that in our political system with MMP, the people who have political power, if they're a minority interest in this country, are people who are prepared to work both sides. So you think Winston Peters, even God help me for saying this, Peter Dunn, now the Greens,
wow, look at
now the
you,
Greens,
really
right?
pulling it out.
Because unless if you're just wanting to be a wholly owned subsidiary of Labor or National, I mean, ACT is a wholly owned subsidiary of National. And the Mana Party will be and is a wholly owned subsidiary of Labor. It's because you only will deal with them. It's not a question of selling out. You've already sold out because you won't deal with the other side.
Let's talk about that. How low would Labor need to fall before the left panic and start looking to strategically place their votes elsewhere? And who would benefit, the Greens or Mana? Who do you think?
Well, I think if it's an issue about trying to get the message out to the poor, then I think Mana is going to benefit. Greens are riding a real strong mainstream wave, and good on them. I don't have any difficulty at all with a lot of the policies that they promote. But Sue was probably a classic example in terms of she just felt that they were moving too much into the mainstream, too aqua, if you know what I mean. No longer just green, but greeny blue, and so she left because of that. I didn't actually go and ask her did she want to come and join Mana. She came to ask me, and she was really, really strong that she saw in Mana the kinds of things that she always wanted with the Greens. Didn't happen, so she thinks it can happen.
Well, how low does Labor Party vote have to go? Because obviously part of the argument Ferrara has been put forward is this meltdown. You've certainly suggested that Labor would
but
get
if
low.
it goes, it'll go to the centre parties because people understand that the only political power is in the centre. So you don't think there is no point in just screaming and yelling. Now, the Maori Party that Hone was part of, establishing, was a party which was able, I would have thought, to have won all 7 Maori seats in this election, had it stayed together.
Will it?
No, it won't, obviously, now. If it had stayed together and if Hone hadn't broken it apart, it could have achieved all 7, and it was able to deal with National and Labor, and it would have had enormous political power. But as Helen Clark once said of Hone and his family, they're haters and wreckers. And what they did is their hatred meant, of white people in particular, meant that they wrecked the Maori Party. They split it in 2. So what we're going to have is a Maori Party with, say, 2 or 3 MPs, wholly owned probably by National, and a Mana Party with 2 or 3 MPs, wholly owned by Labor. And what that'll mean is the Maori people, because of this hater and wrecker, will not have the political power that they could have had had the Maori Party stayed together.
Didn't really answer my question. How far does Labor fall before the left start to panic? This is a legitimate question on the left.
Well, I don't. When you ask me about the left, I don't know quite what you define as the left. Right. I think that people who are Labor must be panicking. I think some of them will be starting to think that they should vote for the Greens. Some will probably think that they might want to vote for Winston Peters, and some perhaps. Might think they want to vote for United Future.
Matthew describes you as a hater and wrecker. He uses Helen Clark's language there. Of course, there are going to be some people who look at the Maori Party and the dead rats they had to swallow for the crumbs of the table and call them all sorts of names. Where's the truth? Are you a hater and wrecker?
Oh, she had to say that, eh? I mean, I was leading.
Helen?
I was bringing the Foreshore and Seabed March to Wellington, and she launched that I think even before the march got started as a way to try and put people off.
Yeah. Didn't work for her, though.
It didn't actually work. I mean, when the media asked me how many are going to be there, I said, well, if 200 turn up, I'll be happy. But 50,000 turned up, and she got it completely wrong.
And she did.
She also,
so why did you wreck the Maori Party?
No, well, I mean, at the end of the day, the Maori people don't actually want the Maori Party voting for anti-Maori, anti-worker, anti-beneficiary and anti-environmental legislation. I am absolutely convinced of that. And if you ask every Māori that, they'll say they think the Māori Party is too close to national. Now, given that that's the case, when they were pushing me out, my view was, actually, I think I'm closer to the constituency. Maybe you four guys should resign. But because they had the power, because they had the money, they paid $60,000 to a lawyer to make it happen.
But you'll never achieve anything for the Maori people, because all you want to do is yell and scream. Because Phil Goff, you say you don't want to go into you don't want to join a Labor government, or Phil Goff says he won't have you in his government. You don't want to sell out whatever that means.
Does it matter whether I'm in a government with Phil Goff? What's the long and short on Phil hanging around after this election?
You've been pushing for Phil to be gone for some time.
So you are prepared in future to form a coalition with Labor, because maybe you'll achieve something then.
Have I said that I won't work with Labor?
Well, no, you haven't, but Labor, it seems, and their leader has said that they won't work with you.
Who have you heard that say that apart from Phil?
Well, from Phil Goff, he's their leader. He speaks to their caucus.
But I mean, the reality is, Phil's gone when? 28th or 29th?
Oh, the 30th.
Yeah, so he's gone, but Labor will still be there.
With the market predicting 2% party vote for Mana, is that a buy because Mana will do much better than the mainstream media predicting, or a short because the disaffected and marginalised stopped voting years ago? 2%?
Probably about right.
Yep.
I wouldn't buy it, but yeah, I think Mana will get about 2%.
You think it's a hold for you?
Yeah, it'd be a hold.
Hold for you. At 2.9, you get John Minto and Sue Bradford as well. Are you going to be buying or selling?
Oh, look, I'm not buying nothing. I'm not selling nothing. I'm just in the business of trying to get mana up in the stakes.
Yep.
I'm really pleased to note that as a result of some of the debates that, and it's been in, Clinton D. Love's been in particular, those two in particular, the leadership debates that I've been involved in, as a result of that, the momentum is starting to rise for mana. If it's sitting around 2%, that's great. I'd love to bring in Annette, she's coming in anyway. John, Sue. I think if we got in there, Matthew, you'd see some seriously different kind of politics than you've ever seen up until now.
Well, thank you, panel. Yeah. Moving on to prediction 3. iPredict says Shane Jones has just a 5% chance of being the next Labour Party leader, but that hasn't stopped Labour's Te Tokoro candidate Kelvin Davis endorsing him as the next leader, just days from the election. Could this be the political end to a man who once described himself as one of the greatest orators of the 21st century, or is he set to surprise everyone and be Labour leader by Christmas? Matthew, Shane Jones is the only lovable rogue Labour have left now. Why have Māoridom seemingly turned on Shane? With a 10,000 party vote majority to Labour, over 5,000 to the Māori Party in 2008, Shane should at least be a contender rather than also ran.
Do you know, he's never managed to shine. I've known about this guy, for about 12, 15 years. He was quite senior in the bureaucracy under the Bolger government. He was in the Maori Fisheries Commission. I don't think he's ever delivered on anything like what people talk about being his potential, and I think that people have seen through him. I think he's going to be absolutely thumped by Peter Sharples in his seat. And the idea of him being Labour leader now, I think, is ridiculous. I think the market is, if anything, overstating him at 5%.
Has Kelvin been hanging out with Don Barash?
Well, I don't know what Kelvin has been doing.
Yes.
It's absolutely extraordinary that a Labour MP, 3 weeks before a general election, would be talking publicly about who's going to replace Phil Goff. I think it shows terrible things within the Labour Party.
It doesn't just. Hone, the rumours were flying that Willie Jackson was going to stand for Mana. The rumours are still flying. He could consider it in 2014. Does Peter Sharples deserve to win with the gains he's achieved from the government?
Oh, I'm not particularly interested in whether Peter wins or Shane wins. I'm kind of disappointed about what's happening with Shane. In fact, he is the best orator in the House that Labour has, and certainly has been in the 6 years that I've been in there. And I noticed that when Shane gets up, whether it's in English or in Māori, there's a real sense of energy on their side of the table. I think, though, that the reason why he's never going to get there is because there's an underlying strain of racism in Labour that will not let somebody like Shane get to the top. I genuinely believe that to be true. I think Kelvin's really made a play for the Māori vote in Tai Tokero by saying that about Shane, even though he's likely to get his hand seriously smacked by Phil Goff.
Do you know, he's not such a good orator. The best speeches I've heard in recent times in our parliament have actually been from Hone, his attack on the emissions trading scheme.
That's different. I'm talking about in Labour's ranks.
I know I'm good,
but Shane's great.
Your attack on Labour's evil Electoral Finance Act, I thought, was absolutely superb. And it's just a shame that you can't discipline yourself to behave in a way that could make you a great leader,
Well, he
rather
seems
than the
very-
schoolboy that
he's-
you
he-
tend to
well,
be.
he seems very
I am
disciplined
a
in this-
leader.
in this
I am a
debate.
leader, so I'm already ahead of Shane and Calvin. So
Well,
I can't be doing too
there you
bad.
go. Question to both of you. When will Māori vote for national in competitive numbers in the Māori electorates, or is the Māori Party the new national party for Māori?
About 25% of Maori are now voting national. John Key has launched a project to break the relationship, in the way Hone have and Te Reo have as well, to break the relationship between being brown and automatically red.
Yeah.
I think that the Maori people have had a renaissance in 20 or 30 years. There's all sorts of different people in Maori society now. That's why the vast majority vote Labour or National, and there's these radical parties on the fringe.
When do you think they might?
I think they're going to wake up and go, no thanks, John. Too many smiley, but still an assassin. What really surprised me was a comment I just picked up on Google this morning on the way down here, where Tariana Turia is claiming credit for all of the Māoris voting for National. I'm thinking, what? What's the strategic position in a Māori party leader saying something like that? I'm really struggling to understand where the Māori Party's coming on with this. I don't think that Māori are anywhere near middle class enough, certainly not upper class enough, to consider National as a natural party for quite some time.
Question to both of you. At least, at just 5% probability of happening, would you buy this because Shane could resurrect his fortunes in the Labour Party and become the leader, or does David Garrett have more chance of being the National Party
Sell,
leader?
he's stuffed.
Sell?
He's
Stuffed?
stuffed.
Sell?
He's not going to win a seat. He's going to be humiliated by Sharples, you know.
Is Shane going to make a comeback?
No, I suspect that Shane's probably going to chuck it after this election.
Really?
Yep, that's my prediction. I don't know how much that's worth. I think that the guy wants to get out of there because he can see that they're out for 3, probably 6, possibly 9. His leadership aspirations in terms of becoming Prime Minister, 12 years away from when he got in, so he's going to walk.
Thank you, panel. Let's wrap the show with final prediction. Matthew, your final prediction this evening is?
Got to do a reversal. I thought that David Parker would be the next Labour leader.
You did.
Rather than Cunliffe. Cunliffe had that terrible week where he sabotaged Labour's campaign with his incompetence over the costings.
Your thoughts?
Then
yes.
he attacked Judith Collins in a disgusting way.
Yeah,
And I thought,
quite funny.
I thought he was out for the count. I thought Parker, but after Parker's absolutely appalling and incompetent performance on this show on Monday, I think you've got to go for Cunliffe for the next Labour leader.
Hone, your final prediction this evening is?
You're just picking the best of the worst. You're not actually looking for a leader. I'm pleased that we're on the rise. I'm looking for whatever it's going to take to bring me, Annette, John and Sue in there. And I think it's going to change Parliament and change Parliament for the better. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Hone. Thank you, Matthew. To my final prediction, Bryce Edwards' column this week on the Māori electorate was a reminder that the mainstream don't tend to focus any attention on these seats. And with such ignorance comes market opportunities. Tito Tokoro and Wairiki have been strong buys, and I hold up the little traded Te Tai Tonga electorate as today's buy. A weak Labour candidate plus small majority Māori Party candidate plus the surprise dynamism of Clinton Dearlove equals buy other to win. Te Tonga, I'd also like to add that National to win Epsom is still a great buy. Tomorrow night, I am joined by New Zealand First Leader Winston Peters and Scoop.co.nz Editor Selwyn Manning. Follow me on my Citizen Bomber Twitter and Facebook accounts for all my latest election updates. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again tomorrow, 7 p.m. for iPredict Election 2011, exclusively on Stratos TV. Until then, get trading.